What's up?
Hello, hello, hello. How's it
Hello,
going?
how are you? Good.
I'm very well.
Yeah,
Very well. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Yeah. Happy to be
Yeah.
back. I mean, there was no show
Yeah.
last week, but
Yeah. Life happens. Work happens.
work happens. That's kind of the thing. Work happens. So
Work happens. Yeah.
work happens, but we're here.
Yeah.
And
How's your week been?
good, good. I spent a lot of time on open telemetry this week. So that was pretty cool. Really getting the hang of it, getting into the more technical side of things other than the Hello World demo. So I've
Actually
been
making it work for a client's application. That's pretty cool.
actually making it work for a customer and very well too, linking it to application insights. So
Awesome. And Open
yeah,
Telemetry went GA in the last couple of weeks as well, 1.0.
yeah,
So that's pretty cool.
yeah. And I've been going through that ecosystem as part of my learning endeavors with OpenTelemetry. And it's a pretty big ecosystem. I mean, the different collectors that you can do, the way you can
Hmm.
leverage Dapper, Jaeger, it's very good. Um, yeah, I enjoyed that. Spent some extra time just for the learning of it. That was cool. How
Awesome.
was your week?
Good. Busy. Still working with the last couple of times we've been on. We're talking about the my client wanting to host their own version of a vendor API SaaS sort of
Hmm.
product. SaaS because it's it's Azure platform on behind the curtain, right? But yeah, that's going today. I've been working on some validation and build pipelines for that sort of stuff. So yeah, pretty interesting, pretty cool. We're getting towards the end of that like mini engagement for me because we're ready to hand it off to the devs to go
Oh,
and do what they need to do. So yep, pretty cool.
all right.
Um, Other than that, having a few conversations here and there about AKS focused solutions for customers. So yeah, I say
Nice.
pretty good to be having those chats to have customers thinking, um, enterprises thinking outside the box, as it were. Trying to adapt and take advantage of cloud native tech. So that's really cool.
Well, that's good, right? We definitely see more enterprises embracing the more cloud native way of things. With regards to SaaS, I always say it should be SaaS in the eyes of the end customer, and then it's SaaS
Which
enough,
it was,
right?
which it was until I got my
Yeah.
hands on it. So
All right, all right. Yeah, and this week we are without Mr. Hooper or Pixel Robots because, well, we're having huge FOMO here. He's at
yeah,
KubeCon North America in Chicago,
and we are not.
and we are not. And I keep checking X. I was going to say Twitter. I keep checking X, and new stuff
No, I
pops
keep
up
saying
every
Twitter.
single hour.
Yeah, so we'll talk about the news in a minute, but we've deliberately left a lot of news out today because there's that much of it that would take an entire episode or more.
Hmm.
So we'll maybe do a KubeCon focused episode next week when Richard's back, just to focus on some of the big news items
Yeah,
coming out of KubeCon.
and yeah, I'm waiting for Rich's input on all the things he's seen there. Really looking forward to that. But like I said, huge FOMO from my side at least.
Yeah, it does look like a lot of fun. There's a lot of Microsoft appear to be everywhere at KubeCon. Every
Yeah.
every tweet that I'm seeing is Microsoft doing stuff. So that's as MVPs. I know we on this show we like to focus on the broader cloud native ecosystem, but as Azure MVPs, it's good to see Microsoft getting involved there and
Hmm.
committing to the cloud native ecosystem. So
Yeah,
pretty
and
cool.
we already saw that at KubeCon in Amsterdam earlier this year as well. Big booth from Microsoft. I have to say, big booth from Google and AWS as well. But it's good to see Microsoft doing that. And
Yep.
I thought they already released a lot of new features in at the beginning of the year at KubeCon, but you know, then you see what they're releasing now, and that's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
If it's just a
It's
couple of months.
and that's the rate. So we talk as cloud architects and consultants. We talk all the time about the rate of change in the cloud,
Hmm.
but the rate of change in cloud native tech is even faster, and there's even more of it. So it's, there's always something to be trying to learn, something new to learn, or something new to play with. So
So when years ago, when it was just Microsoft and Azure for me, just Azure technologies and not even that much AKS or Kubernetes, it was already a challenge to keep up, and I would be going through the announcements and then posting stuff, preparing blog posts, all that stuff. And then in the past couple of years, you see, I think Richard's really good at it. He just starts posting stuff like, "Have you seen this? Have you seen that?" And I'm just, how are we keeping up with this? Like, I kind of stopped feeling guilty for missing something. That's how much stuff comes out every single day.
I think we
Which
rely
means
on
it's
Richard to tell us about the news that we miss. I think sometimes Richard just lives in the repositories on GitHub, so he sees it before everybody else.
I think he does.
That's his bedtime reading.
Yeah. I think you're quite right. We already said we've got some interesting news, so let's move on to the news.
Sounds good to me.
All right, and we've got about 4 items, and then we move on to our favorite part, 10 minutes in tech.
Yeah. Well, we try to keep it to 10 minutes. Apologies, my last demo was 25 minutes in tech, but it was just fun. So
I'm gonna make sure that we stop before we reach the 30-minute mark.
Sounds good. Okay, let me click the first button here. So first up, artifact streaming on AKS. So
I made a huge typo there.
So you did.
Artifact
I didn't notice it.
Streaming. Wow.
Right. Anyway, it's supposed to say artifact streaming on AKS. So usually when you're pulling container images and stuff in from your container registry, nothing happens until it's pulled in the entire image. Artifact streaming is going to change that a wee bit, Wesley, is it?
Yeah, it's definitely it's something that was announced at pre-day of KubeCon, the Microsoft Azure pre-day. I think Richard tweeted or X'd or posted on X. Yeah, we're gonna say tweeted. He tweeted on X.
Say tweeted. Yeah.
Pretty quickly about it. We saw some pictures, and it has a huge promise. Currently, it's only supported for AMD 64 Linux images. That's important to know. I mean, hopefully you're using them, but if you're using Windows containers, you're out of luck for now. I'm very confident that this will come to Windows containers as well. But they've shown pull times from containers from normally 400 seconds to 10 seconds, and from 10 to 15 seconds, and yeah.
Is that then it's going to start to do stuff with the layers that it's pulling in, as opposed to waiting for the entire thing to be pulled in? Is that what we're going to be doing here?
Partially, yes. This is, I think, a couple of years ago we started talking about Teleport, Project Teleport, that has this promise, and this originates from Teleport.
Right. Okay. Awesome.
So it's also great for geo-replication. It's very promising.
Yeah, the Project Teleport stuff was really, really cool, and then it went awful quiet. So good to see a return to this sort of stuff about trying to reduce that time from pull to operational, so awesome.
Yeah, and if we look at the actual feature in the repository, they promise a 15% increase in pull times from images. So I mean, it could still be faster. I think sometimes it will be faster, sometimes it'll be a little slower, but yeah, it's very promising.
Awesome. So you said it's only available for Linux container-based images. You said AMD 64. Does that mean the ARM64 stuff isn't supported yet? I don't see that in the release announcement, but
no, it's not in the release. They explicitly mention AMD 64.
All right. Hopefully,
I got it here somewhere
on the ARM64 stuff, because that's like cloud native processors, cheaper, more green to run, aren't they?
Yeah. So this is the official announcement on GitHub, the AKS GitHub. I'm just going to read it out loud. Artifact streaming will empower customers to scale resources on AKS seamlessly by not having to wait for long pull times for each Kubernetes pod. Customers with the Linux AMD 64 container images will be supported, and we have plans to support Windows and AMD or ARM64 container images in the future. So
Awesome.
back to your question, ARM
Yes,
will be supported as
soon.
well in the
Okay.
future.
Great to know. All right.
So,
Next up in the news then.
Carpenter.
So Carpenter, we were talking a few months back at this stage, I think, about the want to bring Carpenter into like CNCF as a project, because it's an AWS project right now. So coming out of KubeCon, I believe, Carpenter support on AKS.
Yeah, that's exactly what's happening. More efficiency and more cleverness, if that's even a word. I think cleverness is a word. More cleverness
Sure
in
is.
scaling your nodes.
Yep.
As opposed to the default scaling options that we have. Carpenter just goes the little extra mile and taps into the scheduling and where does a pod run and why does it run there and can we do it more efficiently and can we potentially free up a node to
so it's not just about
efficient.
node scaling. It's got its tentacles into a lot of stuff that's going on then if it's worried about where pods are being scheduled. So that's pretty awesome. I look forward to having to play with that on AKS.
Yeah, B2. And it's not just, it's being sold. It's not being sold. You can just use it, but it's being marketed as in, it's more efficient for your cost as well. But let's not forget about sustainability. That will definitely help you there as well to lower your footprint.
Well, those two things go hand in hand in general, don't they? You're reducing your cost, which means you're probably running less compute or smaller images in your node pools or smaller compute. And then that goes hand in hand with sort of reducing your carbon footprint there as well. So, yep. Look forward to having to play with that. We're due to do a show on sustainability. So Carpenter and Kita and stuff like that. I think we might have to have a nice deep dive on those. So pretty cool. Nice to see AWS contributing Carpenter to the wider ecosystem. So that's awesome.
Yeah, you just mentioned Kita.
Yep.
I think let me grab it here. Yes, so the Kita add-on, we don't even have it here, but in terms of sustainability, the Kita add-on for AKS also went GA during KubeCon.
So that helps you then deploying it through your infrastructure as code instead of in your bootstrapping phase with your cluster, so that you can do it in Terraform or in Bicep or whatever. So it's like the Flux add-on. So you can
kind of like that,
yeah, that sort of idea. Awesome. So there's no Helm install or whatever. So it's cool.
I still like Helm though.
I still like to bootstrap clusters with Helm or whatever, at least if you're bootstrapping a whole load of stuff. Yes, a couple being add-ons is cool, but
I think that's the thing, right? If you start bootstrapping clusters and, for example, you do it with Flux through your GitOps process, there's always going to be the discussion: when do you leverage an add-on that you enable during deployment, or do you bootstrap it through Flux, for example?
Yeah. Cool. All right. What else? Next up, Planter Needies or Planter Netties, GA on AKS, so 1.28.
That means for a lot of people, the update or upgrade process will begin again, as only the last 3 versions are supported on Azure in this case. So that means if you're 3 versions down,
you need some work to do.
Hopefully you already did it, but you've got some work to do. Start upgrading. Though the upgrade process in Azure these days is pretty seamless. You even get a nice message: hey, these APIs changed. Check that before you upgrade. So
awesome. Have you got some customers to upgrade then, or are you all on N-1 or whatever?
We're usually on N-1, but then again, you've got customers where you automatically do it or you initiate it, and then you've got customers who you need to ask permission for because it's not like really managed. So
it's always, and those customers that are running single instances or single replicas of their pods will have issues. So yep. All right.
Yes. Let's skip that discussion.
So we're getting up on 15 minutes. So final news item for today. Can you tell which one of these I'm most excited about?
I'm not wearing my Cilium t-shirt, I think. No.
I need a Cilium t-shirt. So if Cilium, if you're watching, DM me and send me some t-shirts or a B or whatever. Uh, so some new cloud native certs announced. Some announced at KubeCon, and in the case of the SDO one, I think that was announced over the last week or two. So some new cloud native certs about how to get to grips with SDO, Service Mesh, Argo in terms of your GitOps, and Cilium for all things container networking and security. So I will be getting at least one of those. Probably try and get all of them just for fun because I'm odd like that. But you know, let's get the CKA out of the road first before I add more certs to my list.
I've got my CKA scheduled for the last Friday of this month.
Hannah, are you confident or?
Yeah.
Well, you get 2 attempts at it, right? So
Yeah, but obviously you want to pass, right? First attempt.
Yeah,
So
you've got
we'll
that
see.
safety net, right? So that's cool.
Yeah, but no, I'm confident enough.
Have you been studying?
Yes, I have. Mainly the I think that's the thing for CKA that people who work with public clouds need to look up on that the whole Kubernetes, the vanilla Kubernetes parts of it, backing up etcd, restoring etcd, static pods, dealing with certificates, that kind of stuff. There's mainly that part that's you need to get under your belt.
Doing the CKA maybe gives you an appreciation for just what managed Kubernetes variants do for you.
Oh, yes. Doing CKA, or at least studying for it, at least that already gives you a lot of appreciation for the managed offerings that we have out there.
Awesome. Well, once I get my CKA out of the road, Cilium is next, and I might just pick up SDO and Argo while we're there. And if you're watching Flux maintainers, your name is missing from this list. So,
all right,
all right.
Put a tweet out on that. 10 minutes tech then.
Sounds good to me.
Oh, that was smooth.
Did you like that?
Nice. All right. So first, the name of this show: a straight line from the center to the edge. That was kind of cryptic, but
yeah, it's the definition of what?
Radius.
Yeah.
Radius.
See?
And that's what we're going to be looking at.
Smart.
Yeah. No, that was very, very clever. Very clever. Yeah. So today, I think we talked about it a little bit 2 weeks ago. Like, hey, Radius has been released. You can go to redhat.io. Then we had some questions in the chat. So how does this map to the open application model, OAM? To answer that, because I did promise to come back on that, where OAM is the definition of concepts and really relies on Kubernetes, and it's more the concept and the vision. Radius is an actual technical execution, and it doesn't just rely on Kubernetes, or it doesn't just provide stuff for Kubernetes. It does a lot more. We're going to see that today. I did already execute part of my demo because it takes a little while to provision some stuff. Redis cache, so that takes a little bit to provision. But so Radius in general, what it does is, for me, and it's still pretty new, but I really get that feeling that dev and ops are finally coming together. Even though we already have that a little bit with GitOps and Kubernetes in general, this feels like it's going to make life a lot easier. I mean, we still have to wait on how widely this is going to be adopted, and obviously we're the kind of early adapters. That's the thing we do. But then we have to see how it pans out in the future. However, what it provides is a standard way to provision your resources, your applications, and ops and dev deploy their stuff the same way. How that works, we're just gonna see that, in a demo. The getting started stuff on Radius is very, very good. Um, click on getting started and run your first app, and there's some commands here. Radius is very easy to install, mind you, like a lot of C and CF projects, or this is still in the sandbox, but like a lot of, or it's applied for sandbox, I think. A lot of those projects, they have their own command line, right? Like with Cilium and Istio and the KubeVirt thing we did the other day, which still haunts me at night, running virtual machines on Kubernetes. For Radius, you also need a CLI, very easy to install, available for Linux, Windows PowerShell. You can do it through CodeSpace. So installing it is fairly easy. What you normally do is you need to scaffold your solution, just like if you start a new project with Visual Studio or Visual Studio Code and you do a new function app, it's a scaffolding stuff. You do that with rad init, and you will see it. It will start initializing. It will install Radius on your Kubernetes cluster. It will create a namespace, Radius system, where some of the Radius pods are running. And then you can do the bicep. We looked at that 2 weeks ago. Hey, you can do bicep and then deploy stuff to, in our example, Kubernetes. That's what it does. But you can go above and beyond. What if I have an application that runs in a container, but I also need an Azure or AWS resource? What if I don't want to run my Redis cache as a container, but what if I want to do Azure Redis or Azure SQL or something else? Because if you look at what we're deploying, in production, I'd say 99% of the time you always need other technologies in that public cloud, not just Kubernetes and the pods that you deploy.
Yeah, you've got to have the backing services, right?
Yeah. So what Radius does is provide the concept of recipes. Now, I used Chef back in the day, so the concept or the naming of recipes excites me. It's nothing like Chef, but recipes, I kind of like that. And what I did is go exactly by that example. So what I did and what I prepared is the demo application. It's just the to-do app. But if we scroll all the way up, what you can do is, have a front end, have your Redis cache up here, and that all runs in Kubernetes. But what if you want to do Azure Redis cache or AWS Redis cache or something else? What you need to do, as Radius runs on Kubernetes, and then you can deploy your apps to Kubernetes, but it just runs on Kubernetes, right? It's not just Kubernetes. What I then did is configure a service principal. In my Azure subscription, I created a resource group, and we've got that here. I've got RG Radius over here. And I gave that service principal permissions, and then I linked it to Radius with, what was it? Over here. Deploy your application. I have to check where there we go. This is what I did. So I wanted to use Azure AWS recipes, which are bicep. That's cool. So for example, for Azure, what I need to do is set up my my Azure provider or my Azure configuration for Radius, which you can just copy paste and post it. And then we've got the bicep over here. So what we're saying here, and this is the interesting part, once you link the service principal and all that, resource DB, which is in this case the Redis cache. Over here in the recipe, we're saying Azure. So instead of deploying a pod with Redis cache, which you will see in this example here. So it's just an application to the default environment, and my environment is called recipes, I think. This deploys it to Kubernetes itself as a pod in the namespace that the front-end app is running as well. And we can see that the front-end app is, connections, Redis, source, db.id. So that's like the resource ID to my Redis cache. But if I do that on Azure, I just name Azure, or if it's AWS, I do AWS. And then I'm going to deploy. Now, this is the stuff I already did, because deploying it, Azure Redis cache is, it can take like up to 20 minutes or something, and it's got 10 minutes intact, and I do want to stick to that 10 minutes. And then if you look here in Azure, or if we look at the Kega NS, I think it's in my recipes. Yeah, Kega pods and default recipes. That's the name of my environment, but you can see the front end is running over here. But there's no Redis container because that is running over here. So one bicep file, and that's when I'm saying dev and ops come together. We can, as ops people, we can create recipes. Like, hey, if you want to deploy the new version of your product, or maybe even a new customer, you can go above and beyond, right? You can do all the fancy bicep stuff that you want. This is what needs to happen. So deploy your application, new container image, or just call Radius from your pipeline, deploy it, and the lifecycle is managed by Radius. And that's another big difference. Because normally, if you would deploy your stuff, then the Redis would remain. And that's the second part and the easiest part of the demo, because deploying it takes a long time. Deleting it, Redis cache, is a bit faster. Before we do that, I will show you that this actually works. And we're going to do some... There we go. Yep. Oh, it's reading. Oh, annoying. There we go. Sorry, I had to. Could you hear that? It was going to read it was reading my browser stuff out loud.
Nope, couldn't hear.
All right. Well, I heard it in my headphones. So here you can see it's running, right? We're doing port forwarding through Radius. And if we click here, we can see it's doing Redis cache on Azure. So I've got my front end running as a pod, and I can have other stuff running as a pod. But my back end, in this case, is Redis cache in Azure. And because I've got that service principal linked up, I can, just manage that lifecycle from Radius as well. So if we do bad app delete, because it's a Radius app, and I'm going to delete, and this one is called recipes, but you could call it, ABC or customer A, customer B, or whatever. It's going to ask me, I like this, how this thing is interactive. You've got parameters to override this, but I'm just going to say yes. Now it's going to delete my recipes. And if we now go back to our Redis cache, we can see it's already in the status deleting. So this is Radius running on Kubernetes, interacting with Azure or AWS if that's the thing you want to do. And you could just deploy all the info. Whereas normally, if we want to deploy stuff on Kubernetes and we've got those backing resources, like you just said, those backend resources, we would have Helm or something else to deploy our pods. So completely different language, different standards. And we would have some Bicep or even Azure CLI or PowerShell on the other side. And you're bringing that together. And this is something you can set up with the documentation in probably an hour. Just get it up and running. And that makes it a very big promise, as in, imagine that this is already that easy to deploy and integrate. Imagine what you can do in the future.
Do the recipes allow you to enforce specific configurations on the stuff that will be deploying in Azure for you?
It's Bicep.
So yes,
we can go above and beyond. Yeah, we can do the Bicep things that we want to do. And alternatively, and that's also a very good practice in this case, we're talking about Azure, is Azure policies. I mean, you want to have those Azure policies set up, those guardrails before, and that's still a good thing from an ops perspective, even though you can have default recipes that nobody touches and your developers will just leverage your recipes. You still want to have those guardrails on the other side in place, because it's just a good practice. You always want that. It's hygiene factor. You want your Microsoft Defender for Cloud set up. You want your Azure policy set up, and then you will get an error here as well. And I broke it earlier today because I made a typo somewhere, and that's what I really appreciate. It couldn't deploy Redis cache, and you get the same error message that you would get if you deployed Bicep, ARM, or through Azure CLI. In this case, wasn't even a typo. No, it was Redis.cache. No, Microsoft.cache wasn't registered as a resource provider. It will give you that error back as well. So it's not that they did not turn Azure or AWS into a black box that you don't know about. You still have all the access that you need. And we're talking about AWS and Azure right now, but it could be also be deploying to a Kubernetes cluster on-prem or whatever you want, really. So for me, I'm really hoping that this is going to take off. I'm also really excited to do more sessions on this, probably a bit longer. But we're looking for a 45-minute session or something to really dig into the details and the use cases. Because if this takes off, it could very well be a new standard in the future going forward.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's I really like it.
It's definitely
that
something
was
that I haven't had a chance to play with yet, so that was good seeing that. Thank you.
Yeah, and I mean, you got Bicep knowledge, so should be fairly easy to take off. Important, you can also use Terraform.
Oh, can you? That was going to be a question.
I think that's let's use where do I have the website? This is getting some other concepts. Open source and multi-cloud. Just gonna check where it's. Can we see it anywhere? Pretty sure you can do Terraform.
You're just
Because that's what the original. No, it's what the original article said. Now we need to figure it out because now I want the answer. Let me just. I'm just gonna Google quickly because we need to know now. And you see that the Redis cache is gone from the thing. They deleted it. Oh, let me see. This was the article. We go. Where offers both in support from app development, like Dapper, infrastructure coding, like Terraform and Bicep.
Awesome. I believe you now.
See? I didn't make it up. I read everything. Here's the. This is a good image to see as well. So this is kind of what we did, right? We had a cloud native application, a front end web app with a to-do list. We leveraged a recipe based on the Bicep. So we sent it the Bicep, and we used a recipe for Redis on Azure in this case, and said it needed to deploy to Azure. But like you can see, AWS, Google Cloud, and Kubernetes in general. So. Yeah, for me, this can definitely eliminate the dev versus ops discussion.
Awesome.
All right. That was it from for my demo. And 30 minutes. Yeah, sorry, 33, 34 minutes. But
15 minutes, 18 minutes in tech. Okay.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Sorry, yeah, I'm still the worst from the last time. So awesome, great demo. Thank you very much, and thanks to everybody for tuning in. We'll be back next week with the trio again, unless something untoward happens. But and we'll probably be spending most of that episode focusing on news coming out of KubeCon.
Yeah.
So
we'll try to do it within 30 minutes.
Yeah.
It's
just going to be a session where we interrogate Richard about KubeCon. So
basically, yeah. All right.
All right.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Thank you for watching. Thank you for joining, Karl. Looking forward to next week.
See you later.
All righty. Bye-bye.